Hawaii Congresswoman, current Lieutenant Colonel in the Army Reserves, Tulsi Gabbard, as well as Tulsi. Let me play a quote of you on Jesse's show, and I want to ask you about it.
Central to that humility, Jesse, is first and foremost recognizing you're not God. You are not in control. And if you try to pretend that you are, what will result, even with good intentions, what will result, unfortunately, is more suffering, more hardship for the people in the world that supposedly he's trying to save.
So I am a supporter, Tulsi, of the Reagan doctrine and the Trump doctrine. Reagan doctrine is providing Stinger missiles
Trump
to the
doctrine.
Mujahideen when the Soviets invaded in the 80s. They were successful. They pushed the Soviets out. Supporting the Nicaraguan freedom-fighting Contras over the Sandinistas and Daniel Ortega. I'm also a supporter of the Trump doctrine, which is bomb the
the freedom-fighting Contras.
living hell out of people. Don't put an American boot on the ground, maybe some Intel boots there, but that's about it. And with pinpoint accuracy, push buttons from all over the United States, and we'll hit any target we want, and we'll blow the caliphate out of existence. Trump did it.
Yeah, drone strikes have pinpoint accuracy, don't they?
Yeah, killing civilians.
El-Baghdadi and associates, and the Al-Qaeda leader in Yemen. It sounds to me like you don't believe in that. We're not putting one American boot on the ground, and my argument would be, if Putin is successful here, God only knows where his territorial ambitions will take him next.
He'll take over the world.
Yeah, Sean, all the things that you just talked about and explained there, frankly, are tactics. Those are tactics to accomplish what? And the what is really the central question here that needs to be answered is, what is our objective? What is the objective of the United States? What actions and objective best serves the interest of the American people? That's the question. That's the thing that President Biden and his administration has failed to detail, outline, or even identify. And it's frankly why we're seeing how he's at NATO right now, trying to clean up the mess that he made with these food shortages and all these things coming around as a result of the sanctions policies that he put in place. So anytime you look at so many of our foreign policy disasters in the past, we see they have come about because our leaders have failed to outline what is it exactly we are trying to achieve, and how does it best serve the interest of the American people? Will it make our lives better? Will it improve them, or will it actually make it worse? And I think that's really the central question that our president of this country needs to answer.
It wasn't a good answer.
We can't be the world's policeman. You and I agree on that part. We can't.
No, you don't.
Okay, however, so he's like contradicting
himself. We are a nation that has a conscience and a soul and a belief in natural law that rights.
Sorry, say that again, Dusty.
He's completely contradicting himself. He says, "Oh, we can't be the world's policeman," and then he talks about, "Oh yeah, let's bomb the fuck out of these people."
Yeah, we can use pinpoint accuracy.
That's so dumb.
Yeah.
Rights come from God, not from government. So I think you agree with that.
Rights come from God.
And when you see entire cities like Mariupol decimated, hospitals bombed out, maternity hospitals, schools bombed out, indiscriminate bombing of innocent men, women, and children, and you see women and children shot dead, bombed out in the streets and the cities of Ukraine, does America at least have a moral obligation to assist a country that's willing to fight for itself to defend their natural rights? Because that's what Reagan called the Reagan doctrine.
The role that we have, and that frankly President Biden should have carried out from the...
Also, what part of that is a Trump doctrine? Trump doesn't have a doctrine. His doctrine was, "Ooh, I feel like doing this right now. Oh, I feel like doing this right now."
Yeah, he described the Trump doctrine as bombing the shit out of places.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what he described it as, and that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
From the get-go in this, and I've talked about this with you before, is doing all that we can to try to prevent this tragic war from happening in the first place. Try to prevent.
I agree with that, but I'm looking at where we are now.
Lives from being lost.
But what you see with your own eyes. But what you see with your own eyes and what we're showing every night, is there a moral obligation, and is it wise and strategically beneficial to the world, and including the United States, to stop this megalomaniac murdering thug right here, right now,
Megalomaniac
with the
murdering
Ukrainians
thug.
willing to fight if they only have the weapons?
We have to look at the world as it exists in reality, not the world that we wish existed.
You're ducking.
And it is a
Tulsi, I'm
cruelty.
asking
It
a
is
real
a
question
cruelty.
here.
No, I'm trying to answer your question. The cruelty
Okay.
is to try to pretend to the Ukrainian people that they are going to win in a war against a nuclear-armed country that is out-equipped, that has stronger equipment, more tanks, more bombs, more planes, more people, more everything.
I disagree
than Russia.
with Tulsi
It's
here.
not realistic. And so what
give
should
them
have been
wait a
done
minute.
from the
So I want to be
beginning is
clear.
the same.
Yeah, you disagree?
Well, I disagree with Tulsi because America has been nuclear equipped since 1945, and we've lost how many wars? Like,
That's
we
true.
lost in Vietnam, we lost in Afghanistan. Like, I don't think that's a great argument from Tulsi, because there's definitely examples of the biggest military since 1945 losing wars. So, yeah, I don't quite. I'm not there with Tulsi. Like, I think the Ukrainians do have a possibility of winning. It's going to be long and brutal, something like Vietnam, something like, where the West loses. Like, we lose when we just can't. A lot of times, and this is what I've been heard, at least lately, that Putin has scaled back his winning condition. And his winning condition, Kyiv isn't part of it. So he's now saying, "Oh, this was just a distraction," but we know it's bullshit. He was probably trying to take Kyiv, and he failed miserably. But I don't think it's that simple. I think nuclear powers can lose wars. It really depends on how much guts the Ukrainians have and what type of negotiations they go into when they try to end this thing.
Yeah. And I mean, North Korea is a nuclear power too, but if I understand correctly, they have a super weak military and not that much nuclear capability overall. So I mean, in any all-out war with any other country, or at least most other nuclear power countries, I'm guessing anyway, they probably would lose.
Yeah, I don't think. I think North Korea would be decent at defending their own country, but they don't have. I don't think they have the capability of waging wars on someone else's border, because when you send troops abroad, you got to supply them, and you have to have those resources at hand to keep that war going. That's probably the hardest part of that, is keeping your army supplied overseas. This is one of the reasons why the Russians are having problems, because they don't have those types of resources to keep their troops supplied. But I don't know. I think Ukraine has a chance. They're not fighting a military force as well equipped as the United States. Yes, they have nukes, but using a nuclear weapon would be a tactical error on the part of the Russians. I don't think they would use nukes unless they're trying to create more Chernobyls, in which uninhabited areas. So I don't know. I don't believe they're going to use nukes. It would just be kind of ridiculous if they did.
Yeah,
it's not like they're bombing
thing.
Ukraine to stop Ukraine from invading Russia. That's the only time nukes have been used was against Japan, who were waging an offensive war overseas.
And then there's debate about whether they were going to just surrender sometime soon anyway. And there's also debate among historians about how much and whether Stalin had designs for taking over any other countries, like and whether he was going to attack parts of Asia too.
Yeah, I know the Japanese. Well, I don't know now, but I've heard discussion that the Japanese were more afraid of a Russian invasion than an American invasion. So, and I think Russians had some designs on some of the northern Japanese islands. And because of the Russians, like the type of government that the Japanese were running were in direct opposition to Russian ideology. So Japanese were very close to fascists at the time in the way
Yeah,
that they were running their country. And the Russians were very anti-fascist.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Unlike, contrary to what James Lindsay claims, communism and fascism are actually often in opposition to each other, even though they're both authoritarian, fucked up ideologies.
right. So I know, yeah, it's a little messy, but if you're trying to draw a comparison to what's going on in Ukraine, um, it's not even close. Like Ukraine didn't have any world domination ambitions. They're not waging any type of wars abroad. It doesn't make sense to use a nuke on them. Like,
Yeah, of course.
you know,
That'd be so fucking stupid. If anyone uses a nuke, it's a massive tactical error because it could lead to World War III and the end of the fucking world. No one,
right,
like,
right,
starting a nuclear war is a fucking terrible idea. That's why the Cold
right.
War was so terrifying when it was happening, and it ended the year I was born, and now we're basically in Cold War 2.0.
Yeah. So if there was a nuke that happens to go off in Ukraine, um, I'm assuming nothing would happen, as it wouldn't be a good idea to engage with that at all.
Oh, don't tell Sean Hannity that you're gonna let Putin bomb Ukraine.
Yeah, but did Sean Hannity, was he this upset when Russia invaded Chechnya? I don't think so.
I have no idea.
I doubt it. I doubt he was this upset when, because this type of destruction you're seeing in Ukraine is the same shit that Putin was doing in Chechnya. It's no different. Like massive bombing of cities and bringing them to rubble. Was Hannity upset when in Syria they were bombing the fuck out of cities? I
Nope.
don't know. I don't think he was this upset. I don't think it was. I don't know. Maybe he was. I think there were some Americans that were upset. I know Hillary Clinton was definitely upset about it.
It
But
wasn't
if Hillary
upset.
Clinton wanted it, he is probably a contrarian. So I have no idea.
I don't think he's at any point been upset about Saudi Arabia engaging in a genocide in Yemen, which has been financially supported by the U.S.
Right. So I don't know. It's a bit of a murky situation.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
weird. It's like half of Fox News loves Russia, and then now half of Fox News hates Russia. It's just
yeah. Like
so weird.
if you go from Tucker Carlson to Sean Hannity, you have totally opposite views, right? One of them, like Hannity advocated for assassinating Putin, and Tucker Carlson is basically pro Putin.
Right. Right. He's definitely pro Putin.
Yeah.
And he's their biggest host. So I wonder what his ratings are like now. If they've taken a dip for him, you know, taking on being pro Russia. But who knows? I have no clue. It's hard to say.
Probably we could check, because wasn't that a while ago, a couple weeks?
It's been ongoing that he's been like pro Putin. Because I'm trying to think of some of the things that he was like. He was really latching on to the Azog Battalion. Tucker Carlson was. He was really latching on to the corruption within Ukraine. He was latching on to Just like making pro Putin arguments.
Okay.
So
I can find that. Yeah, I can find that clip, and we could finish this one and then watch that one if you guys want to.
yeah, if you can find a Tucker Carlson pro Putin clip, that'd be interesting to comment on.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I'll screen share this other one and finish this one. Okay. There we go.
Same
Your
thing that
position
needs to
is
be
give
done
them
now,
nothing.
which is a negotiated outcome.
Wait a minute. Give them nothing because Russia has nukes and they might use them. That's your answer?
We've provided
Even that's a good
tremendous
answer.
amount of support to Ukraine, not only now but over the years, so that they have the ability to defend themselves, and the Ukrainian
But should
military
we
and the
give them
people
the
are
weapons
putting
so
up
they
an
can? You're not
incredibly
answering.
strong.
Should we give
strong
them the
defense.
weapons to win the war? If they're doing a great job, everybody acknowledges that. Should we give them all in Europe too? Give them the weapons if they're willing to fight for their country.
They can't win this war, Sean. This is the real world that we live in. It is not. It's not strategically possible to think that Ukraine is going to beat Russia. If you look at it, and then
so
it
what
also
you're
is the
saying
question:
is
what does winning
you
look
fear
like? What does
Vladimir
winning look
Putin.
like?
What you're saying
You're
is
saying you fear Vladimir Putin would use a nuke. If he uses a nuke, the radiation fallout will impact NATO countries. That triggers Article 5. Do you believe in Article 5 of the NATO agreement?
I think the most responsible thing that our leaders, the United States, leaders of NATO, Ukraine, and Russia need to do right now is look at what the reality is that we're facing on the ground and the reality that the world is facing, and come together to be able to negotiate an outcome to this.
Okay, Putin doesn't want to negotiate. Clearly doesn't want to negotiate. There's been many
Hannity's being ridiculous.
So
yeah, he really is.
Images of dead women and
I'm
children.
not aware of
and when you see
dead women and children in Ukraine.
What if they use a nuke? It's like giving them weapons is not going to affect them using a nuke or not. It's like that's a dumb argument. Like, oh, we should give them weapons because if we don't give them weapons, Russia's going to use a nuke. It's like it doesn't fucking matter if you give them weapons or not.
No matter how much weapons you give them, that's not nukes. Unless you give them nukes, that's not really a deterrent against nukes.
Right.
I just want to know yes or no.
You're missing my point here, Sean, which is we've got to know what we're trying to accomplish, which is an end to this war. It is cruel to make the Ukrainian people believe that somehow they are going to win this war by prolonging it. And that's what you're talking about here. It would prolong this war, prolong the suffering, and end up causing more lives lost in the end.
If Vladimir Putin wanted to negotiate, he would have done it a long time ago. He's not willing to. And if he wants to use chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons...
He hasn't done it before, therefore he's not open to negotiating at any point because he hasn't at any point so far.
Yeah,
that's
and
what we call
he also changed his winning conditions, which... if he changed his win conditions, then something definitely has gone wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and assuming that he's not going to negotiate now because he hasn't in the past, that's just a post hoc rationalization.
Weapons, he's got to know that his entire country is going to be blown off the face of the earth. I pray to God we never get to that point, but that's always been a threat. And it remains a threat here, and we can't cower in fear based on the fact that we've had mutually assured destruction pretty much for all a lifetime. But I appreciate you being on. Good.
Cheers to the small businesses we missed.
Stop. Listen, bro, we gotta threaten to blow their country right off the map, otherwise that won't stop.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, I understand Tulsi's sentiment, and she's more concerned about a prolonged war and the casualties that'll cause. And that's the right thing to be concerned about. But I also don't think that the Ukrainians don't have a chance to win when Putin has already shifted his win conditions. So
Yeah.
it's definitely, I don't think, because right now shifting win conditions is basically the military version of shifting the goalposts.
Yeah.
You know, he was going for this thing and he couldn't do it, so he had to shift the goalposts a little bit. And all Ukraine has to do is keep them shifting the goalposts until the goalposts are something acceptable, and then they can do some type of peace negotiation.